That dude was he was a maniac, dude. Maniac. And he was fun. And the cameras loved him. So the cameras loved him. I'm going to follow him. On this week's episode, we take a look back at our over 40 years of combined experience working in sports and ask ourselves this question: what athletes have shocked you by their success in the professional ranks?
I bet you're probably not imagining back then in college, like, hey, this guy in a Game 7 of the Western Conference semifinals against the Nuggets is going to be guarding the best player in the world.
We'll also examine some of the athletes we've seen and wonder why they didn't make it big. But again, I think it also goes to the overall fact that making it on the PGA Tour and being successful on the PGA Tour is so hard. I'm also up to my ears about the structure of men's college basketball. Are we trying to kill it?
I can't keep track of it. I mean, we could sit here and try to name players that are returning in the SEC right now. It's difficult.
Very difficult. I mean, across the country. I mean, I may be able to name 2 or 3. Episode 8. Here we go. Andale. This is the true story of 2 washed-up sports guys who chased the dream. Private flights, championship rings, running sideline to sideline on per diem and adrenaline.
We gave our 20s and our 30s to the industry, pulled off miracles that were never in the job description. In return, low pay, long hours, and we still got cut from the team.
This is about what really happens behind the badge. The burnout, the bad bosses, the dream job that didn't love you back, but also the lifelong friendships, the chaos, the holy shit stories you couldn't make up. And somehow, despite everything, you'd still do parts of it all over again.
This is one for the ones who lived it, loved it, hated it, and still kind of miss it. For everyone who's ever asked, how in the hell did we survive that? We're 2 former sports insiders with more than 40 years of experience and more than enough scars to make fun of it all.
And just enough trauma to start a podcast instead of going to therapy.
I'm Brandon Barca.
And I'm Andy Boggs.
And this is No Longer Credentialed. We once had access, now we have opinions.
We've seen a lot of athletes in our over 40 years of experience on the front lines of sports. Future world champions, All-Americans, national champions. But there are always a few that go on to successfully flourish in the professional ranks that surprise us. So this week we're going to talk about a few of those athletes that have exceeded our expectations in the professional ranks. Athletes that have become world-class in their craft that have kind of shocked us. We'll each talk about 2 athletes that fit that bill. This is not to say that these folks were not really good in a college competitive setting. It's just that their success at such a widespread and high level is a surprise, at least to us. So Barca, I'm going to go first, and this is going to surprise some people, I think. But my first...
Just a second.
Yeah.
Just a second before you go off here.
Yeah.
I love how you preface a lot of the segments on the shows through episodes. Like,
Yeah.
Hey, look, everybody, this doesn't mean it involves everybody. You know, it doesn't mean that every boss is shitty or every worker is underpaid or every athlete, we think that they were bad, that they were they rose to the occasion. So anyway, you have a good art with that, but hey, he's trying to keep it fair here for everything.
Yeah, I mean, and so that's where this one comes in. And the first to me is Scottie Scheffler. So I had the privilege of working some high-level collegiate golf and saw many of the best teams and players at the national championship every year. So you golf aficionados out there are probably saying, hey, wait a second, Boggs. This guy was a 3-time All-American at Texas. He was the National Freshman of the Year in 2015. His teams won 3 Big 12 championships and advanced to 3 national championships. He had a very, very successful career in college. To that, I say yes, yes, and yes. He was decorated and very good, but he was not the name in college golf in any of the seasons he played. Heck, he wasn't even the best player on his team some years. Bo Hostler was the guy everybody talked about in the Longhorns. Hell, Hostler hurt his shoulder in the 2016 National Championship, and the NCAA changed the rules to allow for an alternate player to travel with the team. Doug Gim, also a future PGA pro, was a teammate. Scheffler's Longhorns teams did not win a national championship. Oklahoma State had a slew of players, led by Victor Hovland, who garnered much more publicity than Scheffler. John Rahm was yelling at his putters on national TV and had the cameras on him all the time. Oregon won a national title on its home course with Wyndham Clark, Norman Jong, and Aaron Wise. And Barca, you were there. We watched it together. It's your first week on the job at Oregon. So I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but his college career was very similar to the way he gets around a golf course today. He treads lightly, but carries a big stick. So when he emerged at the Masters to win in 2024, I raised my eyebrows a little bit. And then when you see him just dominating the tour and seemingly being on every leaderboard at every tournament, I think it's safe to say he outdrove any expectations from his college days, especially mine. It is so dang hard to be good on the PGA Tour, but to be great like this, really, really special, kudos to Scotty for his success.
Did you see the stat? I think it was for the month of May, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I think it was that Scheffler had won three events in the month of May, and the Colorado Rockies had only won 3 games.
Yeah. I mean, it's just one of those things. Like, you knew he was good, but he was on such a stacked team at Texas. And again, there were some really stud players in college golf then. I mean, I worked with 3 or 4 of them, and just to see him kind of doing what he's doing, it's awesome. I love it for him, but it just kind of shocked me.
Think about that group. Obviously, it was my first week in Oregon. Oregon was hosting the national championships. I think you said 2016.
Yes.
The names that you spouted off, insane. Yeah. When you look at now, 9 years later, and how these are some of the top names in professional golf.
Yeah.
I mean, you're more of a golf person than I am, but that's got to be that tournament right around that, if you want to call it like draft class or whatever you want to call it. Some of them played a couple more years, but is it like that every year? Or is that one just like a crazy, because you would be at these tournaments every year, and to think you're like, hey, these are like the next crop of best players in the world. I mean, that's not the case every year. There's a lot of guys that make it, but
it happens a lot.
That was a pretty incredible group. Year. I mean, when you think back, you're like, I wish I could kind of go back and fully enjoyed it. I mean, I enjoyed the event.
Yeah.
But looking back now, you're like, man,
think about Oregon's
insane
team. I mean, there's 3 pros on that team. I mean, Wyndham's won a major, and Aaron Wise could win a major, and Norman Jong
Wise was the best player that year.
He was. And so, I mean,
that's another crazy one, and Wyndham's probably been the better pro player, right?
Yeah, I mean, Scheffler never won a player of the year. We won a freshman of the year in the Big 12. But again, it was just so stacked. I mean, well, the 2015 individual champion, national champion, was Bryson DeChambeau. So then 16, you go to Oregon, and you got, Scheffler and, Bo Hostler, and, I mean, again, all those guys we mentioned. John Rahm.
Had some players, too. That's where they made the
we had great
Oregon
players.
I
think we made the quarters that year. We made the quarters that year, and we had really good players. But again, I think it also goes to the overall fact that making it on the PGA Tour and being successful on the PGA Tour is so hard. Barca, I don't know if there's it's hard to make the NBA because the rosters are so small. It's harder to probably be a Premier League player because everybody plays soccer, and 7 billion people live on this planet, and there's how many people on a Premier League team, and I mean, they're the best in the world. But man, making it on the PGA Tour, where if you don't make the cut, you don't get paid. You can lose your card really fast. Again, to see Scheffler do what he's doing, I mean, he had it, but I didn't think he was going to be the guy. There would have been probably 10 guys I would have put in front of him. 10.
What a lineup. And I'm sure at that point, too, all those guys, I'm sure you were probably, if you were trying to get on TV, you're probably trying to track
I was with him.
Big Bo.
Him. I was with
Rahm.
Rahm was the dude that was always on TV because he was always doing something crazy. And especially that Oregon. I think he only was at Arizona State for 1 year, and I think that was the only year he played in the national championship. That dude was he was a maniac, dude. Maniac. And he was fun. And the cameras loved him. So if the cameras loved him, I'm going to follow him. I'm thinking
of stacked teams or stacked sports in college.
Mm-hmm.
This has to be one of the top, not just this specific year, but year in and year out of people that develop into some of the best players in the world, or go on to be, sorry. And, I think in baseball, when I'm at a regional or super or Omaha, there's a ton of guys that are going to be MLB players, and some of them are going to be stars. Some of them are going to be journeymen, but golf is just, I mean, you're seeing the best of the best. A lot of these teams, and even the teams that aren't that great that get an individual qualifier. Is really cool as well.
Yeah, you see some really good players. And, you know, even like Oklahoma State had a dude named Matthew Wolf. He had this really weird swing, and he was the best player in college golf. He went and signed with Liv, so that's why we don't see him. You know, there's another guy that people talk about instead of Scheffler. I mean, it was just, there's 10, 15, 20 guys. He's my number one athlete on that list. I mean, I love what he's doing. He's so fun. So good on him, and hope he continues doing what he's doing.
You know, when I was a sport management student in college and I was looking for volunteer work to kind of cut my teeth. And so we would always volunteer as a part of the sport management program to help run the tournament. And that was actually back when I think Casey Martin played in it back then, when he was going through all of those things with PGA, and who then went on to be the Oregon coach during that 2016 championship. And we'd get to volunteer, and you know, I always have the mindset of do whatever it takes. And so one of the days they're like, hey, I remember our advisors that would be there that would sort of coordinate and schedule what sort of work we would do over the, you know, 4 or 5, actually be 5 days, because we'd be out there a day early. He's like, you want to be a standard bearer one of these days? I was like, I didn't know a ton about golf. I mean, I watched it, but I didn't know what a standard bearer was. I didn't know there was a name for it. And so I got to walk the 18. I got to walk the 18 as a standard bearer. Man, that's a lot of work.
Dude, those things are heavy.
Yeah.
Are they not heavy?
A lot of work.
Lots of work.
Heavy. But here's the thing about me. I always come from the mindset. It's an old quote. They say, if you're going to be a street sweeper, then be the best damn street sweeper you can be. Yeah. It's a mindset of doing, you know, not being the most talented. You may not be the most talented at what you're doing, but give your best effort.
Yeah.
No matter the task. And so I would go out there and be like, I'm going to show how committed I am to this job. I would always make sure I'd be like, I'm going to be the standard bearer that holds the sign the highest, so everybody on the course can see it.
Ooh.
I'm not the one that's going to be like,
so you got to work out, dude.
You know,
basically what?
Yeah, I'm not going to be the one that's like, where people are looking around, where's that sign? Oh, the guy's over there taking a smoke break. You know, he's 5 because because he can't handle this. I was like, nope. And I'm going to hold my sign high. I'm going to walk the 18. And at the end of it, when nobody sees, I'm probably going to pass out in the corner. Yeah. It's, there's nothing. I hope they make them different now to where you can actually, like, I feel like you couldn't plant them in the ground. Well, you couldn't while you're walking.
I don't think you can anymore. There's a little, you hold this, you have this thing around your waist, right? And you put the pole in your waist and you hold it, right?
Yeah. And the pole and the sign was heavy. Not light at all.
Like, why are they so heavy?
It didn't feel like PVC pipe or anything. It just felt a lot heavier. And so, so anyway, fun stories about, you know, cutting your teeth in the business, and, you know, from that with golf to then see the 2016 national championship at Oregon, a beautiful course, and seeing all of these names.
Crazy, awesome event too. It's just so cool.
It's just cool to like where sports can take you. And again, you're a lot more of a hardcore golf fan than I am. I enjoy the sport, but I don't know, you know, I watch all the majors and I keep up with what's in the headlines, but I got to experience things in that sport that, you know, on a couple different levels that as a kid, I never thought I would get to see those events.
They're fun. Those championships are really, really fun.
All right, Boggsy, here's my first player that, you know, I got to see live on a regular basis coming from West Lynn, Oregon. He was a baller out of high school and made an extreme impact as a freshman for the Ducks. Peyton Pritchard, now on the Celtics. Don't get me wrong. Again, this guy ended up being a first-round draft pick, ended up being a Pac-12 Player of the Year. I'm basing this on watching him as a freshman for Oregon, surrounded by a bunch of talent. He's always had that fearless swagger, just a confident baller on the floor. By the end of his freshman year at Oregon, he had earned a starting job on a team that, in my opinion, was the best team in the country, that ended up getting all the way to the Final Four in Arizona. But his teammates were Dylan Brooks, Jordan Bell, Chris Boucher, Tyler Dorsey, and he earned a starting spot on that roster by the end of the year. So that tells you the type of player he was and what he went on to be. It should tell you a lot about him. He could always hoop, no doubt. At the time, I wasn't looking at him as like, hey, he's going to be a significant player in the NBA like he is now, like 5-6 years into his career. And he's really transformed. You know, he could have easily just been a journeyman type player that floated around on teams and was coming off the bench, but maybe not getting significant minutes regularly, trying to find that right spot. And he's not only just hung on with the Celtics, but he is a legit NBA rotation piece. Just won sixth man of the year.
Yep.
He was averaging nearly a 14, 4, and 4 and logging 30 minutes per game for the reigning NBA champions. And that's also throwing in the key role he played in the title last year, where, if you remember, he was hitting all of these half court crazy shots in the playoffs and towards the end of the year, and made it look like he was shooting free throws, right? And so it's really been cool to see how he was drafted by the right team. He waited his time, and now he's been getting significant minutes. And he's also a guy that, I didn't see him, like, there were times this year when he would get even more playing time and he'd pour in 30 points.
Yeah.
And I just, he could always get buckets, but to see that happen regularly, and I imagine if he was starting regularly on another team, I mean, he's definitely underpaid still. The Celtics are getting him on a steal of a contract, but it's been cool. I just didn't expect him to be that pivotal or crucial of a player on a championship team. And I couldn't have predicted that when he was a freshman in 2017. And if you look at the rest of that class of Dylan Brooks and Jordan Bell and Chris Boucher and Tyler Dorsey, he's probably had the most successful pro career.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably between him and Dylan Brooks, right? And, and that's not a knock on any of the other guys, man. They're just all incredible athletes. But not sure I saw that one fully coming. Again, he's, you mentioned Scheffler being an All-American and all those things. That's not saying that I didn't think he would play in the pros.
Right.
I just didn't think he would. I just wasn't sure he would be that impactful as he is now. He's more than a guy off the bench and a journeyman. And he's not just, playing in the last few minutes when the score's out of control.
Yeah. He's really kind of a Vinnie Johnson microwave type of guy. Like, he's like an instant bucket getter, and he could pour it on you fast, like the way he shoots, and he handles the ball. So he fits perfectly in what they're trying to do there. And I'm with you. I mean, when I saw this, when you wrote this out, like, yeah, that's a definite one. I never would have thought that he would be as good as he is. And he's really, really good. And he's fun. He's so fun to watch. And you just to be happy for dudes like that. Because, I mean, we've seen so many kids who we thought would be, man, that guy's definitely a pro. Or that guy's the best player I've ever seen, or whatever. And then they flame out after a couple of years, or they don't even make it. I don't know. It's just so hard. You see how hard these guys work. I mean, to get where they get. And it's fun to see their work pay off. But then you're wondering, like, well, why didn't these other guys make it? I don't understand. It's really, really, really weird.
Yeah, I think one of the things, if you want to call it intangibles, or one of the tools that he had that you can't really measure, is the fact that he made it into the starting role by the end of that freshman season on a team that, again, was the best team in the nation, that fell into the Final Four to North Carolina.
Yeah.
It just says a testament about someone's work ethic. I mean, because you have at that point, again, Oregon wasn't Duke or Kentucky with all of these one and dones at the time. And so to earn the trust of the coach on that veteran of a team. And so the makings of him being a Pac-12 player of the year, and by the time he finished up to where he was the number one shooter and scorer on the team and best player in the conference, could totally see something like that happen. Sometimes there's a jump from college to pros that, like you said, you just may not get that opportunity or those reps, or maybe your game doesn't fully fit the structure of the NBA.
Or it just takes a while to restructure your body to kind of get to where you need to play, and sometimes it just takes a little bit of time. But it didn't take him any time. Was he a late first round pick, or did he go in the second round?
First round.
Yeah, so he went late first. And so, yeah, I mean, it was just kind of a steal of a draft pick, and you have to have guys like that to be good. And Celtics, I don't know if it's luck or whatever, but they knew this. They had an inkling this kid could play at this level. So
they knew he could shoot 40%, a 40% clip from three.
Right.
So you've got that tool. And then the question is, can you stay on the floor and play defense?
Sponsored by.
It's time to recognize our real sponsors. Unfortunately, there's no new income to report this week because the show has been driven by a series of poor career decisions. But we do have partners just on a free trial basis.
Today's show is sponsored by the Big Ass Hand. Tired of media complaints? Exhausted by reporters asking 3-part questions and then a follow-up? Strap on the Big Ass Hand, foam padded, ambidextrous, and compact enough to count as a carry-on. Just raise all 5 fingers, stare them dead in the eyes, and say what you've been holding in since preseason minicamp. Talk to the hand. Available at Spencer's Gifts, Party City, and that one abandoned Big Lots that used to sell expired Code Red by the pallet. The Big Ass Hand. Don't talk to us. Talk to the oversized metacarpal that's handling this now.
No Longer Credentialed is also funded by the Content Bot 5000. Got an event nobody cares about? And useless content that you're contractually obligated to post? A ball delivery, a check presentation, or even just a ribbon board display that's recognizing the title sponsor. Send the robot in. It'll snap pics, write the captions, tag every sponsor, all while you're at home pretending your phone's dead. It nods and even says, affirmative, when someone mumbles, let's get one more for safety. Man, a real team player, that Content Bot 5000, because not everything needs content and not everyone needs to be there, but everything gets posted anyway.
You get it. My number 2 guy is Alex Caruso. Was he good at Texas? Wow. Was he good at Texas A&M? Yes, very. But an all-NBA defensive player, world champion, and a key piece in OKC's dominance this year? I don't think I ever saw that. This is taking nothing away from this guy at all. He's worked his way up from an undrafted player to a G League player to a standout in the NBA, and it's very admirable. At A&M, he played 137 games over his 4-year career and averaged 8 points, 4.7 assists, and 2.02 steals per game. He left the Aggies as the school's all-time leader in assists and steals. And he has good size.
Only 8 points a game.
Yeah, dude. Right. That's what I'm saying.
Career average.
Yeah, and, thinking back on it, he's 6'5", so he has good size. And they made the Sweet 16 his senior year, so there's a little leadership stuff going on with him. His dad was an associate AD at Texas A&M, and he also did some color stuff for their radio. So he'd probably been around that program forever. But to see what he's doing right now in the NBA, no way. I would have never, ever, ever thought that he'd be as good as he is. So he's my number 2.
Hey, you know what? I hate to compare him to the movie White Men Can't Jump.
Yeah.
But, I mean, when you see him on the sideline to look, I think of like Woody Harrelson as Billy Hoyle.
Yeah.
To where he's sitting there getting ready to play pickup ball.
Yeah.
And, he's pretending to be the goofy guy with the flipped up hat and the tank top and the high socks and like, oh, there's no way that guy can ball. Not that Caruso is dressed like that, but visibly when you would look at him, you'd be like,
yeah,
sure this kid
I don't see
ball?
It here. I don't see it.
You look at the assists, but he was actually pretty darn athletic though too.
He is. That's why he's had
from a sense of dunking and driving to the rim. Like
I think he's really worked at it though, Barca. I mean, he had some of that at A&M, but I think he's way more explosive now than he's ever been. Just a testament to his. I mean, I don't know him, but it just seems to me like he's really, really put the work in. And Barca, I think that's one thing that if you don't work in sports or you haven't been around athletes like this, how hard they go in the off season, in off season workouts, and people work really, really hard to get to this place. And you can see it in his body. I mean, he just looks, if you put a picture up from his senior year at A&M to where he is now, it's night and day. It's night and day. So good for him.
That's one thing that can always go unmatched. And again, extremely talented, very athletic. I mean, you think about in the playoffs, like I bet you're probably not imagining back then in college, like, hey, this guy in a game 7 of the Western Conference semifinals against the Nuggets is going to be guarding the best player in the world, Joker. and denying him the ball the entire game. I mean, he's a guy that definitely, I would think, is very self-aware of what his tools are and what they're not.
Right.
And then just not only knowing his role, but really, I would think, working hard behind the scenes to becoming the best at his craft. And so he takes pride in his defense. He seems to be a good teammate everywhere he goes. And so when the Thunder was able to sign him in the offseason, it was a steal. And I can't remember
traded for him.
The Lakers.
They went. Was
that one a trade?
They got him for Giddey, and
oh yeah, that's right, because he was over on the Bulls. I was thinking the Lakers didn't let him get away because they were kind of salary cap strapped, I think.
Yeah,
and then he went to the Bulls. You're right.
But it's like watching Aaron Nesmith. When he played at Vanderbilt, he was like an offensive juggernaut. Shooter.
Yep.
I mean, he was a good defender, but did I imagine him picking up Jalen Brunson full court in the Eastern Conference Finals and shutting them down, or him being a key player against them? No, not at all.
Hitting 8 or 9 threes and crazy game one comeback.
I saw that. Like, a lot of people have kind of don't really recognize how good of a shooter he is. I mean, that dude, I think I've told you this, his last year in college, he played 14 games because he got hurt. He ended the season tied for 10th in threes made, and he only played in 14 games. I mean, he made it was like 4.3 threes a game, and he's just a really good shooter. And that stuff just doesn't go away. He's working on it. And so now he's one of, I don't know, probably a top 10 perimeter defender in the league. And now he's, now people are seeing he can shoot. If you've watched his game, you knew he could shoot. But again, I mean, I'm not going to put Nesmith in that group, but, did I expect him to be doing what he's doing? Probably not. Was he capable to do it? Yes. But to end up doing it? Probably not. And I love him. He's amazing. To see this coming from him, I didn't see it.
Well, Nesmith, whereas the Celtics held on to Pritchard, gave him time to develop, gave him these 4 or 5, maybe even 6 seasons, however long it's been, some time to develop off the bench and increase his workload and give him big moments to shine. Nesmith was drafted by the Celtics. And so I don't remember the full story on why they let him go. I don't want to necessarily say they gave up on him. It's just interesting, how teams and their rosters, how patient they are with some players and sometimes how they let ones get away. And I think there were signs of it there with Boston. And again, I don't remember what the reasoning was, but it's cool to see that, a lot of times these guys, when this happens, is like you can just never find the right spot. And I've seen it with players in the past in pros. I mean, we've been so fortunate to see, in the SEC, and even when I worked in the Pac-12, and it was like Dylan Brooks versus Lonzo Ball shootouts, or seeing Ayton play, or I think of all the SEC games that I saw over the years, and seeing AD and seeing John Wall and Cousins, and I'll even throw a shout out to my guy Saul Smith. Even enjoyed watching him. Probably should say Rondo though, but seeing all these players live, and then players that we saw every day in practice, and it makes me go back to think. And obviously I am biased because I love Derek Byers, and Derek Byers was a guy who transferred from Virginia, sat out a year, ended up being 2007 SEC Player of the Year, led Vandy to the Sweet 16. Actually, I feel like, they should have made the Elite Eight if Georgetown and Roy Hibbert's team, if Jeff Green on that same team, talk about a lot of stars on both teams. Yeah. Jeff Green traveled in the last 2 seconds and they gave him the bucket, and Vandy lost by 1. Just, we should have been in the Elite Eight. I think it was against UNC, and that was a team that gelled at the right time. But Derek Byers, there was everything about him. He was a 6'7" wing who could shoot, who could slash to the hole. He was a decent passer. He could play D, gave max effort on everyone. Great locker room guy.
Good teammate.
I just love him. He's one of my favorite Vandy players ever. He ended up getting drafted, and then I think he was traded on draft night. And, I went back looking through his stats and just loved the dude. And he only logged like 1 or 2 games in his career. He ended up on the Spurs, and it was like the last 2 games of the season. A lot of times when, teams are just, filling those 10-day contracts, or just filling out the season if they're not in the playoff runs. And he almost made it with the Bulls. He he was actually the final cut in preseason that happened, which was heartbreaking as well. But you watch his game and you're like, I look down the bench in the NBA and you're thinking like, from the 8th to 9th person down the bench all the way to the end, which I think it's probably up to 15 now max.
Yeah.
And plus you now have two-way contracts, which you didn't have back in 2007 or 8,
or the G League, really.
Players. The two-way contracts where you could go back and forth from the G League and, basically go up and down and it wouldn't penalize you. And so they've structured those types of things and didn't have that, but didn't have the right spot. Like, again, those players like 9 to 15, all those dudes can play.
All of them can play.
And a lot of the dudes in the G Leagues can play. It's just a question of, can you find the right organization it's extremely hard to get into the rotation of an NBA team.
Hard.
Unless you're already a proven player, or maybe the team has a lot of stock on you from the draft. And, there's a lot of politics and reasoning why certain people get more PT than others. And for him, he just never, I feel like he didn't have the right spot, but he could have been just as valuable of somebody that could have been in that 6 to 8 range on the roster.
Yeah.
And just never had the chance, and ended up doing awesome in the big 3 and playing a long time in his career. But,
yeah,
I think if there are a lot of players like that we see in college and that have really successful careers through the G League or overseas. But that's what I'm just like,
what happened? Why didn't he make it?
He never got his fair shot.
Yeah. It's just so hard. It's just so hard to make it to the next level. I mean, you really have to be a certain kind of athlete. You have to be a certain size. Those are two things right off the bat. If you don't have them, it's a like what Jalen Brunson's doing. It's pretty hard. I mean, there's not a lot of dudes his size, right? And like a guy like Devin Downey, one of the best college players I've ever seen, but he was like 5'8", right? Or 5'7", 5'9", whatever he was. Yeah. He was so crafty around the basket, but he's just not big. He couldn't do it in the league. He's just, he just couldn't do it. And I don't know, it's just so hard for these kids. It's so hard. That's why when they make it, man, you celebrate them, especially the ones and the ones you've seen. It's like, guys, great job by you. It's a really, really hard thing to do.
So my second player that I'm taking in this, and gosh, another ball player that I just love to death, a guy who is just a grinder and an all-around player, and someone that coaches just love to have on their team, was Mike Yastrzemski. I mean, he's 34 years old right now, and he's still starting regularly in the big leagues for the San Francisco Giants. And obviously, we all know grandson of Hall of Famer Carl Yastrzemski, but he's earned everything on his own. He's a guy that was drafted his junior year, 30th round by the Mariners in 2012, chose to return to Vandy, had a massive year, helped Vandy. He really broke out that year, his senior year, helped Vandy to a historic 26-3 SEC record, which has never been matched. He was, all SEC, solid leadership, just a total ball player, and ended up, and this is rare as a senior. Usually you have less leverage, but he ended up being a 14th round draft pick by the Orioles in 2013. And the crazy thing about him is he did not get called up to the majors until he was 28 years old. Wow. I go back and thinking like, it's not exactly the Bull Durham movie where, you're a lifelong minor leaguer, but so many of these guys, again, that you go into these situations and you never get really a fair shot because of the politics of all of these other guys drafted and who gets jumped over you when somebody gets hurt or is not performing well on the big league roster, and do they have another prospect that they're higher on or invested in more, and so it didn't look like it was going to happen. Once he got up to 28 and found his way on the Giants. I mean, I looked up just to look at scouting reports on what people were saying back in 2013, and here we go. He's a good athlete, doesn't have any standout tools. Rather, he's a good baseball player with feel for the game and the skills to do everything well, but not great.
Right.
Someone else, pined, while not a true prospect in the sense that he'll have a bright future in the big leagues. Yaz could be a solid backup on a team with a few breaks along the way. And then a third one said, projection not seen as a future big leaguer. And so never really got his chance with the Orioles, unfortunately. And then he caught on with the Giants and he beat the odds. And, as you know, minor league life is brutal. And there's so many people that don't make it through rookie ball to single A to double A and all the way up to triple A into the pros. And he stuck with it. grinded it out, earned it, and he found the right org with the Giants. And he's still a consistent contributor to this day. Seventh season with the Giants, again, 34 years old. He can play all three outfield spots. He's just a max effort guy who just hustles all the time. He's, a leader in the clubhouse. He's an everyday player. He's been a two-time Gold Glove finalist in 2021 and 2024. In the 2020 pandemic season, he ended up being all MLB's second team and eighth in MVP voting. And he's also won, the Willie Mack Award and been the Roberto Clemente nominee for the Giants for leadership and community work. And his persistence really paid off, and his grit, and he's proved a lot of people wrong. And just, I love his story altogether. And, he has a difficult backstory if you look it up, with his father and, passing away at a younger age for him. And so he's just overcome so much. He hasn't lived off his name at all. He's a baseball player, man. And he's, if you ask Coach Corbin, or I'm sure if you ask the Giants coach, I'm sure they just light up when they talk about guys like that.
Yeah. Yeah. He's, if you think about all the guys from that 2013 team, and he's the one that's pretty much gotten the most accolades. Was Brian Reynolds on that 2013 team? I can't remember. Anyway,
I don't know if he was. Tony Kemp was.
I can't
remember if Tyler Beatty was. I think he was pitching on that team. There's probably loaded with pitchers that year. I don't, Walker Buehler was probably pitching on that team.
He was.
I'm sure Carson Fulmer was definitely pitching on that team.
Yes.
We're talking like top 10, 15 MLB draft picks. He was also part of that while the 2013 team fell just short of Omaha. He was part of the 2011 team that was Vandy's first team to make it to Omaha.
Right.
And so the guy's he's a winner. He's a winner at everything he does. And it's been cool to see that, whereas we were talking Derek Byers, I don't feel like ever got the right opportunity or with the right club. I think the Giants definitely have given him that spot, and it's been cool to see him he's 34 and he's still playing in the big leagues. It's just an awesome story.
At a pretty high level too.
No doubt.
I mean, I didn't follow baseball as much, but you kind of would follow his career a little bit. You'd hear about him, and you're like, whoa, he's the Giants, and he's doing what with the Giants? Like, it was just, when we were kicking this idea back and forth, he was a guy that kind of came to mind at first. Like, how in the world has this guy made it? And he's thriving, and he's really, really good at a crazy all Major League Baseball level, And so I'm excited for him. I'm glad for him. I'm happy for him. And, clubhouse guys go a long way sometimes. Guys who are good in the clubhouse or good in the locker room, their longevity is a little bit longer sometimes than other players, just because people want to be around them and they make your environment better. And these seasons are long. And if you have a good guy that's around, it makes the season go by a little bit faster. So, and he's good. So it's it's a great combination for the Giants. So happy for him.
Yeah. Coach used to always say back in the day, and all of the different press conferences and interviews, he would always mention just with players in general about having a consistent heartbeat.
Yeah.
And Yaz was one of those players, like day in and day out, level-headed. You knew he was going to bring his A game to the dugout and to the field every day. He was a consummate pro. He's just, he's what every coach, dreams of from that perspective on the consistency. And, you know what you're going to get, and he's going to give his best. And he really has shined and overcome a lot. Again, like I would have to think, I don't know how many players out there make their ML debut at 28.
Yeah.
I would say it's probably an extremely low percentage. I wish we had Eric Jones on right now, but I would have to say it's probably somewhere between 1% and 5%.
Yeah.
5% feels high.
Yeah.
So
good for him.
I'm up to my ears right now.
All right, people. The best part of my week is here. And I've been waiting for this moment all my life. I can feel it coming in the air tonight, oh Lord. That's right. Boggsy has cooked up his parting shot, and somebody cue Phil Collins' drum solo. The kitchen's about to catch fire.
Okay, BB, this rant is about men's college basketball and the sport itself. It's broken. The portal, the one-and-done rule, the lack of familiarity of players from year to year, the gigantic staffs, The season starts too early and nobody pays attention until December. All each are worth their individual segment. But I'm going to get even more basic. The structure of the game is passing it by while it's stuck in the 70s. Playing halves? Sure, why not? Let's be the only segment of basketball in the world that does that. Play with a lane that elementary school kids play on? Yes, we love clogged lanes and restricted movement with men that are as big as they've ever been in the college game. What about the shot clock? Surely we play the same clock as international basketball in the NBA. It's our main objective these days to get kids ready to be a pro. Nope, we're at 30 seconds, and not real sure why. I guess it's better than 35. Advancing the ball with a timeout with under a minute remaining? Everybody else in the world does it, but it can't be that great, right? A few years ago, the women's game made some key adjustments to differentiate and, frankly, fix their game. They adopted quarters and allowed for advancing the ball, amongst other things, and decided to have a product that fit into a 2-hour television window. It was genius, and it has a lot to do with its rise in popularity. Sure, a once-in-a-generation player in Caitlin Clark helps matters, but nobody, fans or TV execs, ever complains about women's games being too long. Check a Reddit board after a 2-hour and 45-minute men's game. Well, it's time for the men's game to follow suit. It's low-hanging fruit for the sport. Personally, I just mirror the international game. Wider lane, 4 10-minute quarters, same three-point distance, 24-second clock. Structure your immediate timeouts like the college women or adapt an NBA-style commercial system. It gets everyone ready to play at the next level, whether that is in the NBA, G League, or in Europe. Recently, the Rules Committee has adopted an NBA-style challenge system, which should help the pace of play. Going to the monitor for every call ruined the flow of the game, and if you ask me, allowed officials to use it as a crutch when calling a game. Officials will have to be sharper and more decisive, which will be tough in some instances, but for the good of the game, it's the right thing to do. I'm up to my ears, Barca. Does anyone even care about the structure of the game anymore?
Boggs, I know I agree with you on a lot of things, but I definitely agree with you on this one as much as I'd love to fight you right now. Look, college basketball, let's fix the game. It's been a while. Change the shot clock since when we were kids, when it was, 35, 40, right?
45.
Let's get it down to the 24. Let's get rid of the 10-second backcourt violation rules. Let's speed up the game. Let's get more possessions. Like you said, let's look at scheduling. People aren't watching in November, December. Like, I don't care in November about seeing my favorite team playing like Northeast Shit State U. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Not interesting to me. Like the NBA, they need to fix their stuff in the fall too, to where people aren't watching until Christmas anyway. I get it from a coaching perspective. You're trying to develop your team. You're trying to get strength of schedule wins and things to put on your resume to show up in March. People aren't watching and people don't care except for the hardcore junkies. I think the length of the games is an issue. We've talked before about the end of the games with too many timeouts. It's an issue that faces the NBA as well, to where, to quote Hoosiers, I get caught watching the paint dry because it's so damn slow late in the game. And I sound like the old man on the hill, but it's got to change. Speed it up, and if they still have a timeout or two left, depending on, if you reduce the amount of timeouts at the end of games, let them advance the ball to half court. Let's make it a little bit more exciting. But I think overall, I'm watching less and less college basketball. Then every year it's getting less and less. And it's because the product on the floor, and it's a bigger issue. And maybe it's because, we started with the one and dones and we're getting less and less face time with these star players now staying in college for 3 to 4 years, on top of NIL things right now where people are just have one good year and then they jump to another team. So I can't keep track of it. I mean, we can sit here and try to name players that are returning in the SEC right now. It's difficult.
Very difficult. I mean, across the country, I may be able to name 2 or 3. You know where they should start the year, Barca, Bray?
Maui. Maui, I love it. I thought you were going to say like one of those battleship
like
games.
Aircraft carrier.
Yeah, aircraft
Those games are fun. They don't do those anymore.
Well, you
those
remember
games
back
were fun.
They were fun, but back in the day where they'd have to get canceled because I think there's too much moisture on the court.
Yeah, it's really funny. But they should start the year every year in Maui. It should start November the 24th or something. Then you go from there. I mean, you kind of taken away from the preseason tournaments because there's so many, and I understand why they do it. So programs can go to different places and you can play in one. I mean, back in the day, there were two. It was Maui and it was Alaska.
Alaska shootout.
Yeah. So those were like, when you saw those terms, like, oh man, college basketball's here. This is a really big deal. And Alaska used to have some crazy good games.
Yep.
That was a big, big tournament.
And the only other thing was the 24 hours of basketball, which was kind of a cool.
Why are they not doing that again? Who's running this? Who's running this deal? Like, you should be doing the 24-hour basketball every year. People remember that stuff. No one's in charge, and so you have these coaches in charge of everything, and there's no head marketing person that's trying to fit all the schedules together, and it's just like, hey, when can you play? All right, let's go. And just need to have some structure to what's happening. I mean, that's another podcast, but it drives me insane. Like, they're trying to kill the sport with everything. They're just trying to, let's just let it go, instead of like reining it in and doing what's best for the sport, for the kids, and the TV ratings. And people would make more money if Maui was the tournament that started off the year and you started around Thanksgiving. You just would.
What do you think's happening in these meetings, these off-season meetings? You think it's that coaches potentially are more focused on just rule changes or now NIL stuff and how it impacts them and trying to regulate some of that stuff, and there has to be people behind the scenes thinking like, how can we better market this product? But there haven't been drastic changes in several years.
There's too many cooks in the kitchen, I think. I think everybody's got their own opinion and they don't want to be told what to do. And I think that's going to change. I really do. I think like what we talked about in a previous podcast, I think that the power is going to be shifting. I think the coaches aren't going to have as much juice. Other people are going to be making some decisions for them that they're probably not going to like in some instances. And I just think there's just too many cooks in the kitchen. I don't think there's nobody just looking out for the better of the sport. It's like having a czar. No one wants to have a czar for a sport. But if you had a czar for college basketball, they'd be talking about what we're talking about. 100%.
I'm nominating you, Andrew Boggles.
I would do it. I totally would do it.
Let's just do something for the game. It's unwatchable watching these teams on offense. I mean, we're watching I'm probably over exaggerating right now, but a lot of these games in the low 50s
and 60s,
and
what?
And maybe it's been that way sometimes for a long time, but it's unwatchable. I can again be the old man on the hill and talk about the decline in offensive skill sets and shooting and how the game has evolved into obviously 3-point shooting. We've seen that happen in the NBA as well. That's a larger issue. You start getting into the scheduling in November and December and all these other places, and man, ESPN, regardless if anybody's watching, they love having live programming on just about every night,
they do.
Any time of year. So
yeah, I mean, that's why they have all these tournaments. It gives them people to watch something in the middle of the day on Thanksgiving week. I like the tournaments. They're great. They're good experiences for the kids, and sometimes you have some really good competition, and they're great. I just think you should shift them later in the year. They shouldn't be on November the 15th. They should be on December the 15th.
And if you're going to play
people
November,
are actually paying attention.
If you're going to play November, December, you need something a little more gimmicky. And I think we've talked about this before. They used to have the preseason NIT, and then you had the Maui tournament, Alaska shootout. Something that's just a joint. Maybe it's a knockoff version of March Madness that includes more teams, and that's what the preseason schedule is. Or I'm just throwing stuff out. I'm not saying I believe this. Maybe it's like World Cup, and you have some group play action, and then have a miniature tournament. Just something that's more. We're just seeing a lot of different matchups and a fun style of play, rather than again, hey, we got these 8 to 10 non-con games that are, hey, it's a Tuesday night at 8:00 and don't really care. I mean, we're supposed to win this game, but sure, it's great if you're a hardcore fan. You're like, man, I really want to see this class develop and get to know these players. But
I think
these players are out the door
are shrinking. I think
those players are gone. I mean, the damage is already done on that part of it. And the only good thing, well, if we're doing pros, I hate to be doing all these cons, is if you're a basketball fan of a school that has fired a coach and they were worst in the conference, and like you said in the past, you've been a part of a team that had 0 conference wins in the SEC. And sometimes those teams would take like 3-4 years to rebuild through recruiting. And now some of these teams can revamp. And, I think that same school revamped their entire roster last year and made it to the NCAA tournament for the first time in probably like 8 years or so.
Yeah.
So from that part, from a fan perspective, it's kind of cool. It's kind of like this fantasy world, but it's still there's no, like, you have the attachment to the school, but the player, that was a special thing about college basketball. And it was growing attached to these players and being a part of their experience, their highs and their lows. And when they first came in, seeing how their game developed and what they would turn into in the end and how they'd impact the team. From a storytelling perspective, to me as a fan, like, I'd want to turn on the games. I cared about the kids, and I cared about obviously the coaching staff. And sure, I still care about the school and I'll watch it. I have no interest other than I want that team to win.
Right.
I don't really care about the pieces that make up like the DNA of those teams.
Right.
It's just the name on the jersey at this point, because I can't keep up with the names on the floor. I'm old, people.
Time to wrap it up.
And that's another edition of No Longer Credentialed. Thanks to all of you listening, and if you like it, tell a friend and give it a 5-star rating on your podcast app of choice. Next week on the pod, I'm calling it the vacation episode. While I'm frolicking on the beach, we're going to give you a compilation of some of our outtakes that were on the cutting room floor. I promise it'll be fun. Don't forget to check us out on social media at NLC Pod on X, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We'd love to hear from you. Until next week, keep grinding.
More in-game interviews with coaches and players. I think you'd be all over that.
I love those. Keep them up. ESPN, if you hear this, keep up let's triple the in-game interviews.
Forget the media timeouts.
I love them.